filmed. See, and this is where, like, I talk shit and then people think I hate cops. I don't. And I keep saying, like, so many of my family are police, fire, and military. So I'm in the park and I'm filming a peaceful discourse between, like, a legitimate, amazing gang unit officer. This guy's just an impeccable officer and he's an amazing human being. And I've been trying to get an interview with him because he's an example of what good police is, right? But then it's like, is he fully good police if he's not speaking out against the bad police? But, let's just leave that aside. He's good police and he's a great human being. And I watched him have peaceful discourse with protesters, answering questions. It was calm. They're kind of exchanging. Sorry, that night makes me emotional. Exchanging back and forth. And I made sure to film that, and then we actually clipped a piece of that and sent it out alone. And kind of from that clip, we actually made that officer like a social media icon. And a lot of people that watch my feeds always ask, "Where's Trevor?" So it's like this game now trying to find Trevor. But yeah, you see something like that, and then what bothered me later is that, see, there's so much of the unknown, right? What each side doesn't see. So like in that, and I highlight this whole situation like so much. So like this particular group started setting up a tent, and because they were gonna do exactly what they're doing here tonight. They were literally practicing civil disobedience, right? The true definition of what the protest is. And here come the cops, and there was like, I don't know, 20 people that were in the park, and so they got nervous when the cops came, and it was Trevor and his unit. They have the nice little discourse, and Trevor promises them that they're not going to get arrested. They can stay in the park all night long, just stay in the park, but you got to take the tent down, right? That was the compromise, right? Because KPD's freaking out about a tent going up like it's going to be an encampment like you've seen in some of these other cities, which is not what they were doing. And that's where it's like, I understood law enforcement's perspective on it, but at the same time, like, these were not Antifa-like people. Was it necessary for law enforcement to come out and have the conversation? I mean, you're watching me film, they're monitoring my live stream. I think, my personal opinion, I didn't think law enforcement needed to come out and engage, but I understood why they did. So they made a compromise. We won't put the tent up. We're going to stay in the park. And you have a situation where as individual protesters were getting tired and just legitimately wanted to go home for the night. They were kind of done. They were going to come back tomorrow. So as they're walking away and they get, a couple blocks down away from me streaming, they're getting snatched by a different set of officers. So protesters see that these other protesters are getting arrested. They think Trevor lied to them like it was a trap. And it was really Trevor's unit wasn't going to be arresting them. And another group did. So now they're pissed off. So they march on the police department. They're yelling They're agitating. This is where somebody had asked me about protesters agitating police. They did exactly what a protest is. They went, they agitated, they got the attention, and they got what they wanted. And that was for Trevor to come back out. Now, while they're over there agitating, command is already telling Trevor, there was this whole thing where, again, a compromise was made, get off the street, get back in the park, and we'll send Trevor. So it took them longer than it should have to quiet down. I have somebody, a friend of mine, texting me that Trevor's in the park waiting for them, but I can't interfere. I can't tell the protesters that the cop is there, right? Because I have to stay non-biased. So, like, that's the kind of stuff, like, where as a human being, like, I want to say something, but I can't. So anyway, they finally come back to the park, but it's taken them too long, so Trevor leaves, right? So now they're getting irritated because it's taking Trevor too long to come back. So they're like, fuck it, we're going to set the tent up again. Now, what law enforcement doesn't see, and I was far away, so law enforcement's not hearing what I'm seeing and hearing. You know, my phone's not picking up their conversation. But the group literally discussed as a group, right, because they're in a park. The park closes at 10. So, like, anything before 10, you can put a little tent right there. I can set up the hammock. Everything's fine. So they literally as a group discussed, if we set the tent up, does this fit the definition of civil disobedience, or are we actually committing like a serious crime, right? So they talked about it as a unit, and it's a local ordinance ticket. Like, it's garbage. So once they had established, like, we're not actually committing like a serious crime or anything, and that it's just a local ordinance thing, they're going to disobey some stupid petty ass rule. So they said, fuck it, and they set the tent up. Now, the whole time in my heart, I'm like saying to myself, please don't set the tent up, please don't set the tent up, because I already know they're getting arrested. So as they're setting the tent up, again, my third party is messaging me that this is all over the police scanner, that they're setting the tent up, and so the tent is up, they're all going back and forth on law enforcement side over the scanner, and they come out in the middle of the street, which, mind you, is barricaded off, so they're not like impeding traffic or anything. And they all got in a circle. I kneeled in the middle of the circle and I filmed them one by one telling their story, their personal story of why they were here. And it was a very intimate thing, and it was a very real thing, and a very vulnerable thing. I was the only person that stayed out there with them. And kind of prior to all of that, as like these people were like leaving and then getting picked up, the human side of me came out, and I ended up interfering. And I tried to say this without crying, but they were genuinely terrified of leaving that park. They were terrified. And I walked up and I said, I was going to go home, but if you want me to stay until every last one of you safely gets to your car and leaves, I'll stay. And they asked me to stay because they were terrified. So anyway, cut to the circle. Again, I'm being messaged. I'm hearing, I'm being told what's being said on the police scanner. And command made the decision to arrest them for setting up the tent. Now, because of what happened on the other side of the courthouse, the floodlights come on, and as soon as floodlights come on, like CS gas is being launched, mace balls, rubber bullets, whatever. So I know they're coming. They're coming in full force. And I was afraid that they were going to get hurt. So their medic that was there I kind of turned and like mouthed to him, "Please don't leave," because he was getting ready to leave, and he didn't understand what I was saying. And I held the camera really far away from me, and I whispered in his ear, and I said, "They're coming in full force. Please don't leave. They need you." And sure as shit, the whole goddamn park got flooded with law enforcement, and they panicked and started running, and cops are just grabbing them, and then a bunch of them got arrested for resisting, a bunch got arrested for disorderly conduct. They all got hit with and not all, I think there was like 5 of them that got arrested. They got hit with a curfew ticket on top of the extras. And it was unnecessary. And that's why I say there's a difference between protester and rioter, because that's a protester. Started screaming and cussing at him, and Trevor basically gave him, one chance: stop screaming and cussing at me, otherwise I'm not going to stand here and listen to it. And it was all kind of bitches and hoes that were being thrown out there. And Trevor said, "Okay, that's it, I'm walking away." And that's where you see, like, you got what you wanted, you got the message across, and then it was ruined by all the screaming and yelling and cussing and for me, being the bystander looking in, I'm seeing both sides. And both sides aren't seeing the other side. And it's like, if I could get that group of protesters together along with law enforcement and explain what I saw and what I experienced that night, would either one of those groups change their perspective of the situation? Would either one of the groups or both of the groups have apologized to each other? Would they have understood and appreciated what the other group did and why they did it that way, where having all of the information and possibly doing things differently, then maybe that leads to a change. And that's essentially what this is all about. It's what the whole thing is about. So like when you're in Portland, when you're in South LA, when you're in Louisville, if you take away the violent shit that you see and you look at the scenario as what I just explained, can both sides actually talk to each other? Can there actually be change then? Can there be the understanding?